The world's flora is at risk. 20% of all plants on Earth are at risk of going extinct in this century. And in the continental U.S., a fifth of all native plants are heading towards extinction. Many of those plants are right here in California. California's mild Mediterranean climate and our varied topography lend themselves to a multitude of microclimates. As a result, there's a huge diversity of native plants. Sadly, those plants are under threat from development, from pests, from climate change, and from fire. If we don't step up, a quarter of California's native plants could soon become extinct. A quarter of all California native plants grow in San Diego County. This enormous plant biodiversity supports communities of butterflies, bees, reptiles, mammals, fishes, insects, and all the other life forms that make up California's native habitats. Plants are a fundamental part of nature, yet are remarkably undervalued. As more plants become threatened and endangered, scientists are hard at work to preserve plant diversity around the world and here in San Diego, as we'll see today on A Growing Passion. Plants everywhere are under threat, in the deserts, in canyons, at the beach, high atop mountains, and even in our own neighborhoods. No one knows this better than the team of dedicated scientists at the Center for Plant Conservation, also known as the CPC. The CPC is a cooperative network of 43 botanic gardens, arboreta, and other plant-related organizations across the country. Since 1984, they've been working to keep Native American plants from going extinct.
Plants are incredibly diverse. There are over 400,000 kinds of plants on the planet. Of those, there's thought to be over 80,000 or more species of conservation concern. When we say that, what we mean is those 80,000 kinds of plants around the world face imminent extinction if current trends continue. It's an amazing amount of species when you think about it. To put it in context, if you combine all of the world's vertebrates, all the amphibians, fishes, birds, and mammals and reptiles, there's only about 80,000 of those on the entire planet. There's as many endangered plants as there are all vertebrates on the planet. It's not commonly known, but San Diego County is the most biodiverse county in the contiguous U.S. What that means is there's more kinds of species here in this single county than any other single county around the country. There's a large number of species found here that are threatened with extinction because of the rarity of the habitat that they live in, and they're found nowhere else on the planet.
The CPC recently moved their headquarters to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. There they work closely with the San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research.
The intrinsic beauty, the diversity that exists because of plants on this planet is unparalleled. For others out there to at least appreciate that on some level, and at least to not disregard it, to understand that everything has a place, and this effort is meant to preserve as much diversity as possible.
Until now, getting the public to appreciate the value of plants has been a challenge. But as more plants become threatened, the public is slowly realizing that plant extinction is not something happening far away. It's happening right here. And the critical need to protect endangered plants is right here too. Torrey pines are among the rarest pines on Earth. They're a tiny remnant of a vast Pleistocene forest that once spread across Southern California. Only 2 slivers of their original habitat remain. One is on Santa Rosa Island, about 40 miles off the California coast. And the other is here, on the sandy bluffs of Torrey Pines State Natural Reserve in La Jolla, just north of San Diego. Today, about 3,800 of those imperiled trees grow protected in this reserve, where they're facing a very serious threat. Years of drought and increasing temperatures have weakened the trees and made them vulnerable to attack by bark beetles. In 2017, 500 Torreys died from beetle infestation, and many more were infected. So I'm seeing holes here, 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 here. So what we see there, that little bit of shiny stuff, The beetle has bored into the tree, and the tree's response is to defend itself by putting resin into the hole to try to flush the beetle out. That red is characteristic of where a beetle is. The bark beetle burrows into the cambium and phloem tissues in the inner bark to lay their eggs. These tissues are critical for the tree's survival. These trees can deal with some beetle infestation, but the current level is overwhelming.
You can see that there's these pitch tubes coming out of the tree where the tree has tried to flush them out. And this is due to the red turpentine bark beetle, and they just colonized the base of the tree.
Wow. So who won?
Unfortunately, the beetles won in this case. So you can see the tree isn't looking so good. It's lost all of its needles.
Stephanie Steele is a scientist at the San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research, one of CPC's partners. She's studying genetic variation in Torrey pine trees, looking for a possible genetic basis for some trees' ability to resist bark beetles.
We want to assess how much genetic diversity there is across the genome of the Torrey pines, and we specifically want to focus on regions of the genome that might help them adapt to challenges such as the bark beetles. And the idea is that if they have more genetic diversity, the more likely they are going to be able to respond to those challenges. From there, this helps us decide what seeds we need to be sure to protect in seed banks, and it can also help us decide which individuals we want to plant back into their natural habitats.
Like humans, each tree has its own unique DNA. Stephanie is mapping that genetic diversity to see if there's a difference between trees that are killed by bark beetles and those that aren't.
So we're just going to go to this tree right here. We'll go to the base of the tree and we can take some measurements.
Stephanie, with help from Clarice Mendoza, collects data and tissue samples for genetic analysis.
So we are going to measure the diameter of the trees, and in order to standardize it between all the trees that we survey, we're going to measure it right at 130 centimeters. So I'm going to lean it against the tree.
So is this what they call the diameter at breast height?
Yes, exactly, our DBH. And then we're going to wrap it around the tree and then measure the diameter from that.
Okay,
so
you hold
I'll
that.
hold that. Sorry, centimeters. And perfect. 34 centimeters.
Okay, so we're entering 34 centimeters for the diameter. Okay, Nan, so now we're going to take a GPS point of the tree so we can put them in a map. So if you want to hold it as close to the tree as you can.
Like that?
Yep.
So is this sending a signal up to the satellite and telling the tablet where the tree is?
That's exactly what it's doing. So, and this can be really accurate too, so we get less than a meter accuracy.
Okay, that's just too cool.
Okay, Nan, so we're going to take a few more survey points. So the first thing we're going to do is look at whether the tree is alive or dead.
Alive.
This tree looks good, so we'll mark that. And we can also look for bark beetles. So if we go down to the base of the tree, we can look here to see if it has the pitch tubes from the red turpentine beetles.
Yeah, I see those.
Yep, so we'll just mark those as present. And now we can look for the Ips bark beetles. So that requires us to look up into the tree.
Using my binoculars, I can see that there are tiny exit holes present, but it looks like Ips may have been there in the past.
And they're not there now.
Mm-mm.
And then the final thing that we do is we look at the condition of the needles, because if there are bark beetles, you start to see them browning. So we'll write down the percentage of browning needles.
The ones over there are brown, but that's that tree, right?
Yes, this
That's
is that
a
tree.
dead tree.
But all of these
Looks
needles
green.
look pretty green.
Yeah.
So we'll record that.
Next, we take tissue samples from the tree. Stephanie sterilizes her tools so she doesn't move beetles or pathogens from one tree to the next. She carefully collects samples of needles and branches, wraps them, and drops them into liquid nitrogen for the trip back to the lab. As dire as this current threat is to Torrey pines, bark beetles are not new.
The last time we had beetle attacks in the late 80s and early 90s, we lost, I want to say, on the order of 800 trees. What's different now is we've had a much longer drought. What's been happening is we have this sort of water deficit that's carried from year to year. The tree's best defenses against the beetles is having plenty of water and sap in their system to be able to push them out. One of the other factors that's important is the temperatures. We've had much higher than average annual temperatures here over the last decade or so, and so the beetles are able to reproduce quicker and maintain their population sizes over the year.
Drought combined with climate change threaten the entire community here. The outcome of this infestation will determine the future for Torrey pines, along with the other plants and animals that live in this ecosystem. Back at her lab at the Institute for Conservation Research, Stephanie prepares the samples we collected. The tree tissue samples have been kept on dry ice to preserve their RNA. The frozen needles are brittle and easy to crush into a fine powder. Stephanie puts the powder through a process that isolates its RNA. Stephanie will send these samples off to another lab for sequencing. With the data she gets back, she'll look for genetic variations. It will take years to determine if there's a genetic basis to bark beetle resistance, and if there is, how to use that information to preserve Torrey pines into the future. The Torrey is one of many species that could be analyzed using this approach. Eventually, this information could guide conservation biologists as they collect seeds, breed, and potentially reintroduce species like the Torrey pine back into the wild as a way to prevent their extinction. Tacati cypress is another of California's rare species. Only 15 populations of this Ice Age relic grow in the chaparral and hardwood-covered mountains of northern Baja Mexico and southern California. Eons ago, this region was a lot cooler and a lot wetter. In those days, Tacati cypress habitat was probably widespread across southern California. But as the climate changed and got warmer and drier, the trees dwindled along with a number of other species. Today, Tacati cypress are limited to just a few mountaintops. Stacy Anderson and Joe Davitt both work in the Native Plant Seed Bank at San Diego Zoo Global. Together, they target species for collection, they do most of the local collecting, they document and prepare seeds for long-term storage. Today, we're with Stacy and Joe collecting Tacati cypress cones in the Otay Mountain Wilderness. This is one of the few remaining stands of Tacati cypress.
Let's collect from this one.
This tree?
Sure.
Okay, Joe, why did you choose that one?
It's important that we pick randomly, so I didn't really choose this one for any specific reason, but when we're deciding to make a seed collection, it's important that we choose randomly individuals throughout the entire population.
Okay, so what are you going to do?
I'm going to take a bag here. We always keep our seeds from a single individual separate, so we keep them separate by maternal lines, and we would then just twist off a few cones.
Oh, that's it? You just twist it?
Yep, they twist right off.
How many will you take from this tree?
So ideally we choose or aim to collect 5 to 10% from a single individual. This is a big tree, it has a lot of seeds. We'll probably take a couple cones, 3-4 cones from this tree.
And why 5 or 10%? What is that? What's the point of that?
The idea is that we're not adversely affecting any population. So
you're not stopping it from making new trees at some point.
For something like this, for perennials, it might not be quite as important, but when you think about annuals, you don't want to take all the seed out and then, for the next season, they don't have any seed to reproduce. So we make sure that we leave plenty of seed so that this plant can reproduce. Goes in the bucket. We're ready for the next one.
Well, who gets to choose the next one?
How about you?
Ooh, I'll choose. Good. That's a beautiful one. You told me, didn't you, that Otay Mesa is one of the few places where these Tacati cypress still grow?
That's correct. This is the largest known population in all of California.
Really? Mm-hmm. And why is that?
It's protected, and it's about 6,000 acres, so it's able to save the largest stand in Southern California.
How many of these should I pick?
Well, it's about 3 or 4 would be good. Maybe choose from there, and then we could pull down another limb for you to reach.
Smells good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that smell. Let's choose a big fat one.
We try not to do that ourselves, but we want to choose from the big and the little, the not so beautiful, and the beautiful.
Tacati cypress seeds hold clues about how the trees adapt to their environment. These trees release their seeds only in response to fire. In the intense heat, the cones open and the seeds fall out. This looks like a little soccer ball.
It does indeed look like a soccer ball.
It's really, really tight. How many seeds do you think are in here?
I would guess about 20 seeds.
And how would it open? In a fire, how would it open?
So during a fire, there's a resin seal that is gluing these scales together. And when a fire passes through, it charges this cone, breaks up the resinous seal, and that helps flex the cone open.
If we hadn't pulled this from the tree, how long would it be on the tree?
For the life of the tree.
It doesn't fall? The tree doesn't drop them?
Correct.
It just stays up there.
It stays up there. It's an arboreal seed bank.
A seed bank in the tree instead of in the ground.
Correct.
Each Tecate cypress cone takes at least 10 years to ripen, and a tree can take 35 years before it's mature enough to make its first cones. So when fires happen in too close a succession, entire populations can disappear. It looks like there was a fire through here not too long ago, is that right?
Yeah, you can see some evidence of charred trees up on that ridge there.
So fire helps these plants, but it also hurts them, isn't that true?
Yeah, so the trees need the fire to open their cones. That's obviously very important. But if the fire were to come through too frequently after the last fire, then those trees don't have a chance to mature and start reproducing more seeds.
So that means that the second fire can wipe out the whole community.
Yep, the whole population could be lost.
Tecate cypress populations suffered a huge blow when wildfires raged through San Diego County in 2003 and then again in 2007. This stand was spared, and it's now an important source of seeds for the future. Collecting and storing these seeds in the seed bank is insurance in case of future disaster. In addition, there's a planting of young Tecate cypress in a rustic nursery not far from this habitat. So this is a Tecate cypress farm, huh? This is a living gene bank where Tecate cypress trees are grown for their seeds. It's one way to preserve the species.
This tree was planted in January 2013, so this is an established Tecate cypress.
I can tell because it's more than 5'3". I know that. And the ones we're going to look at are the ones that need a little more help?
Yes.
Okay, let's go see those.
So this tree was planted at the same time as that last tall tree.
Huh, so why is it so much smaller?
Hard to say really. It might be the genetics or just environmental conditions.
But it's as valuable or not as valuable?
Yeah, equally as valuable. We want to conserve all the genetics of the species in this field gene bank.
So this is important because this is a very sensitive species and it's threatened severely by fire in their native habitat. So by creating a little plantation here of these trees, it forms an insurance policy.
Oh, so if those burn, you can collect cones off these?
Correct.
Eventually?
Eventually.
Seeds from the Tecate cypress and other plants in the native seed bank collection grow in a shade house at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. The seedlings will one day find homes with conservation partners on other properties. Conservation biologists use these strategies to stop threatened plants like the Tecate cypress slow march towards extinction. Look at Dog Beach, it's in bloom.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, actually it is. Endangered plants are all around us. You pass some every day. They grow on the hillsides and in the valleys, and even here at the beach. Beach sand dunes are actually complex ecosystems, but we seldom think about their value as native habitat and home to threatened plants.
Right here we have a very rare Nettles lotus.
That's the red and yellow flower?
That's right, and this is the beach evening primrose.
These blooms mean that seeds will soon follow. Stacy and Joe are scouting today for future seed collections, and they're taking a plant sample for San Diego Zoo Global's herbarium. Plants that live on sand dunes are adapted to very challenging conditions. They live on a loose, shifting substrate, the sand, with salt spray from the ocean and little, if any, fresh water. The sunlight is intense, as is the heat. Plants that survive here are tough, and they play an important role in protecting against erosion and sea level rise.
Yeah, so this is the beach burr we were looking at earlier. You can see it forms a really low-growing mat, and that really helps collect the sand and then also keep the sand from blowing away, which is what forms the dunes.
So this is really dunes in development right here.
Yeah.
The biggest threats to this habitat are from development, from invasive species, and from overuse and misuse. Stacy and Joe collect seeds here regularly from endangered species like prostrate lotus and from a plant called Abronia meridima, whose common name is red sand verbena. This kind of typifies an adaptation of a dune plant. It's got really thick, fleshy leaves, so it's kind of succulent, which means it's collected water in its leaves because there's not much moisture here. And the other thing is, see how upright those leaves are? This is a really, really intense sunlight area. And so when you see leaves that are upright like that, this is how the plant puts them so that they're not so vulnerable to being burned and just too much sunlight. Since this uncommon plant is in full bloom and forming seed pods, the team takes this opportunity to collect an herbarium specimen.
So let's make sure we make a cut that has both seed pods and flower on it if possible.
This looks like a good one to me.
That looks like a nice one to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
I get to do it?
Yep, go for it.
So I'm going to cut right there.
Perfect.
You get it?
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, look at that. This red sand verbena cutting has tiny magenta flowers, immature seed pods, and even a flower bud. Together with its leaves and stem, this is an excellent representation of its species. Stacy records the growing conditions, the sun exposure, and the longitude and latitude of where this cutting was made. She also notes other plant species growing nearby. All of this information will be included for future reference on the herbarium specimen. There's the cutting.
Great, thank you. And we're just going to put it in our field press. And this will basically hold the specimen until we get back into the processing lab where we can put it in a wood press with a fan.
And that'll dry it out.
And that'll dry it out, yep.
Everything here is connected. Plants help create sand dunes help buffer the coast and beach ecosystem against storms. Lose the plants, lose that protection.
Over time, you see that in an urban area, more and more space is filled in by urban development, leaving fragments that where the rare plants are growing. These fragments are really beautiful protected jewels where these rare plants are growing.
Joyce Mashinsky coordinates the research done by scientists at San Diego Zoo Global and other members of the Center for Plant Conservation.
All of us are interconnected. With the changes that are happening in the world, with climate change happening, we don't really know which species are going to make it to the other side. So we need to save all the pieces. The practice of doing conservation in a scientific manner, doing seed collections and working with native habitats and building databases, doing genetic research, helps us build a body of science that we can share with the rest of the world.
San Diego Zoo Global Native Seed Bank is conserving the diversity of San Diego County's plants by drying and freezing seed for long-term storage. Each seed collection conserves the invaluable genetic material from individuals in each plant population. Seeds are gently coaxed from their pods and cleaned in a blower that separates seeds from leaves and stems. Seeds are labeled and set to dry in special humidity-controlled chambers. They're dried down just enough to remain viable under long-term storage conditions. Our Tecate cypress cones were baked in a lab oven to melt the resin and release the seeds. Some are stored in deep freeze, while others are kept on the shelves. And some seeds are planted for studies on germination rates, viability, and to be used in restoration projects. Our verbena specimen is moved from its temporary field press to an herbarium press. A fan helps dry out the plant tissues before they're mounted on acid-free paper and added to the herbarium as a permanent record. Seed banks and research are vital components of plant conservation. These tiny genetic reservoirs might one day be used to restore native habitats or as a source of genes to solve problems that arise in the future. With every plant that goes extinct, the diversity and complexity of life on Earth is diminished. All living beings are interconnected. When enough connections are broken, whole ecosystems can fail, and the balance of nature is forever altered, ultimately jeopardizing even our own survival. We can't let plants continue to disappear. We have to acknowledge their fundamental value and stop their extinction. Plant extinction leads to animal extinction, and maybe even our own. There's so much to gain and everything to lose. I'm Nan Sterman. See you next time on A Growing Passion.